Ladies and gentlemen, the Chicago Bulls are only a few weeks away from playing their first few games in the preseason and the start of the regular season. And this video is going to be my very early predictions on what the Chicago Bulls playoffs will look like. Now, will we make the playoffs? Will we not make the playoffs? This is my playoff prediction video for the Chicago Bulls very early. Now, this season is very different to so many others. So we'll be talking about all of the things that could be standing in our way or could send us to an advantage with this playoffs this year. Can we make it? Let's see what I think right now. What's up, everybody? It's the Aiden Sports Show and welcome back to another video. Today we've got a Chicago Bulls video in relation to the 2021 NBA playoffs and the Chicago Bulls chances of somehow making it there. Are we good enough to make it? Will we have the opportunity? Can we do it as a Chicago Bulls team? But before we get started, please like and subscribe to the Aiden Sports Show YouTube channel. Turn notifications on and let me know in the comments below. Do you think this team is good enough to make the playoffs? And do you think the events that will happen within this season will be a benefit towards us or a disadvantage towards us? Because let's face it, guys, the Chicago Bulls expectations last year, the year before that, and this year was to make the 8th seed, to make the playoffs. And the last 2 years we have failed to do that. This year we are hoping to change those things again. Now, if you're looking at our free agency moves, you would probably say compared to other teams we are in a very bad disadvantage. However, there are things within this NBA season that could potentially fall in our way to give us a playoff spot this year. It's going to be very interesting to see just exactly how this is going to work, how this is going to play out, and if some teams end up getting robbed away from a playoff spot. Now, the first things first, before I go into any of the teams that will be our competitors for this year, I do want to talk about the NBA and the way that it's scheduled its games and the things that they put in place to give us a disadvantage or an advantage, depending on what you guys think. First things first, this NBA season is going to be 72 games instead of 82 games. We will not be playing the last 10 games of the season because obviously this is a shortened season due to the virus. So with that being said, I believe we are going to have every interconference team, the East 3 times, and every team that's in the West twice. That's how it's going to work. So we should be seeing, I guess, a more balanced way of finding out who should be in those seeds. But again, 72 games instead of 82 games, I think this is probably the right way to go. I do think this doesn't give really any team a disadvantage or an advantage right now. But of course, if you're the 11th seed and you're trying to chase up to the teams above you, the 72 game disadvantage is going to be massive. It's going to be a massive disadvantage knowing that you don't have the same amount of games as you normally would to catch up to teams that are in front of you to get yourselves into a chance to make the playoffs. That's going to be a big issue, but hopefully the Chicago Bulls are not going to be in that situation. But if we are in that situation, that is a massive disadvantage. But if we're not in that situation, if we are the 7th seed, if we are the 8th seed, if we are the 9th seed, we're going to be in a huge advantage considering the teams behind us won't have enough games to catch up to us. So those are the things that we need to take into consideration. Depending on where we are as a team towards the end of the season will ultimately reflect if we will end up being an advantage or a disadvantage. Also, the NBA has decided to have a play-in tournament for the lower seeds. So how will this work? The best way that I can explain it, and it's still very tough to explain, the 7th seed and the 8th seed will end up facing each other. Or I guess the 7th winning percentage and the 8th winning percentage will verse each other. Whoever wins that game will advance to the 7th seed in the NBA playoffs. The 9th seed and the 10th seed will also face each other, and the winner of those seeds will end up competing with the loser of the 7th and 8th seed to figure out who will end up being the 8th seed. That seems very confusing when I say it, but pretty much it's 7 versus 8. Whoever wins takes the 7th seed. 9 versus 10. Whoever wins will verse the loser of 7 versus 8. And whoever wins that game will end up being the 8th seed. So hopefully that explains it well. If not, I could be more than happy to just put it in the comments for you guys as well. If you don't understand, let me know if you don't. That's the best way that I can explain it. So pretty much if the Bulls realistically only need to make the 10th seed to give themselves a chance in the playoffs, is what I'm trying to say, which could be a huge benefit towards us considering we were not far away from the 10th seed last year. And if we're going to be a very similar team, then we need to aspire to get to that 10th seed and give ourselves a chance within the playoffs. So we'll be versing the 7th seed, we'll be versing the 8th seed, we'll be versing the 9th seed, we'll be versing these seeds to see if we can get our spot into the playoffs. That is going to be a massive advantage for a team like the Chicago Bulls, that we just don't know what sort of team that we are right now. We don't know if we're going to be in a playoff hunt or if we're going to be missing out. We don't know what team we're going to see this season. We have so many new things happening, new front office, new coaching staff, players hopefully playing a new system, developing, getting better. Some players might end up dropping off, not belonging on this team. We don't know which Chicago Bulls we're going to see. So the structure of the way the NBA has put this season into place, in my opinion, could be a massive advantage for a team like the Chicago Bulls, who are in the unknown right now of exactly where their team is and where exactly we have to go in the future. So the NBA scheduling could be a very good benefit for us. Of course, if we are in the 11th seed, we're going to be in a massive disadvantage. But if we are towards the 10th, 9th, 8th seeds, we could very well be staying there, and the advantage will go to the Chicago Bulls. The fact that if we are getting higher than that, for example, if we are the 7th seed and we're dominantly the 7th seed, but we lose our play-in game tournament games, then of course, people will feel like we got robbed because we deserved it. But at the end of the day, I think this is only to be done for the shorter games, to give the teams that could have been the 7th seed at the end of the year, in a normal year, a chance to compete. So the Chicago Bulls, I see this being a massive advantage for us. Hopefully that doesn't come back to bite me when it's time to play those games and we end up falling away. But we wait and see. I think those are big advantages that we can have. Now let's look at the teams that could be in competition for us for those 8th seeds, 7th seeds positions. So first things first, we need to look at the teams that finish 7th and 8th and all of the teams that finish below 7th and 8th to see exactly what our competition mainly will probably be. So the 7th seed was the Brooklyn Nets. The 8th seed was the Orlando Magic. The teams that missed out on the playoffs that finished above us was the Washington Wizards and the Charlotte Hornets, who I believe we had a very similar, if not the same record as all of them, except for maybe the Wizards. I think the Wizards won a few more games than us. The teams that were below us were the New York Knicks, the Detroit Pistons, the Atlanta Hawks, and the Cleveland Cavaliers. So we need to look at these teams to see if they're going to be taking a huge step up or taking a huge step downwards in their trajectory for this season. First things first, we're going to have to talk about the Brooklyn Nets. I think the Brooklyn Nets should be taking a massive step up. I think there are teams that finish first and second, teams that finished within the top 4 and 5 that could end up going down. For example, I really have a strong feeling the Raptors will not finish the 2nd seed this year. Just a personal opinion of mine. Also, teams like the Indiana Pacers might end up having a worse season with a new changing of coaches and unrest within the players, the Victor Oladipo saga. There could be a lot of that going on around some of these teams, and there could be teams that Brooklyn Nets need to step over to get in a higher position. I don't see the Brooklyn Nets finishing 7th again this year. I see them finishing minimum 5 and max obviously 1st, because I think that's the type of quality team that they have. Now looking at Orlando Magic, they're the team in my opinion that will be very interesting to watch. They've lost DJ Augustine, who was a very good player for them. They obviously have a few injuries to deal with. I don't believe they're going to have this season with Jonathan Isaac and Aaron Gordon. I don't think they're going to have a lot of their players in for this. But of course, this is the type of team the Magic are. They always seem to make their way into the 8th seed every single year when people think that they're just not good enough of a team. And that's down to good coaching. It's also down to the will to get there. But the Orlando Magic, in my opinion, is definitely a team that could fall away from their 8th seed for sure. But again, they were one of the teams that were absolutely were streets above what below them. I mean, they won 33 games. The Washington Wizards only won 25, so they were streets ahead of Washington and every team below them, to be honest. So that is something that we also need to take into consideration. They could very well drop off, but how much are they going to drop off to the fact where they're going to be a 10th seed or a 12th seed or anything? I think that the Orlando Magic could very well be in a position where they have to fight for a playoff spot, similar to the teams that we'll be discussing. The Washington Wizards. Now, the Washington Wizards, in my opinion, is is the pinnacle. It's the unknown. Now they've got Denny, a player that I think a lot of Bulls fans rate, but I'm not sure how well he'll do with the Wizards. John Wall's coming back. Bradley Beal is still there. They have more than enough to say that they deserve a playoff spot. So with that being said, this all comes down to my opinion. How is John Wall going to be playing? Is John Wall going to come back and become that all-star that we've seen from years and years and years on end? The last 2 years of John Wall isn't a great reflection on him. Can he come back and be that all-star John Wall and take the Wizards to the next step? Or is Washington going to trade John Wall? These are the things that we need to look out for. But for the time being, I'm going to say the Washington Wizards definitely have a chance to be put into that playoff position. And that is another team that could be on our list of rivals that we need to keep an eye on for sure. They're definitely ones to watch. The Charlotte Hornets, of course, the Charlotte Hornets have gotten better. I believe, obviously, LaMelo Ball is a huge pickup for them. Will be able to run the floor and offensively carry a lot of the load. They also have, I believe, Gordon Hayward signed for the Charlotte Hornets on a $30 million deal. They have a lot of expensive contracts on that team. I think they waived Nicholas Batum off of their team, which I think is going to be a big loss for them, considering that defensively, I don't think Charlotte are that great of a team. And I think they could definitely be in contention with us. They definitely, on paper, you would say they have a good offensive team, similar to the Bulls in many ways. But defensively, who's going to get the job done for them? I don't think they have many defenders on that team that can say, they can put them in a place where they're in a top 8 fight. They could definitely do it. They could definitely miss out as well. That's where I see the Charlotte Hornets being at the moment. The Chicago Bulls, I think, are the next step. We need to be taking the next step, obviously. I've talked about the Bulls before. Of course, we're in a new coaching staff. We have a new way of playing. We're in the unknown just as much as any other team. So the Chicago Bulls are definitely in that fight, but we could also be one of those teams that definitely miss out. I think with the team that we have, hopefully the young core gets a little bit better. We have a very well-rounded team. Patrick Williams is coming in. I think this team should be competing with the teams above them, should be competing with the Magic and the Wizards and the Hornets to get a spot. But if they don't, I can't say I'm going to be 100% surprised. I see us being in the race. Let's see if we can win that race. Let's just see. The New York Knicks, I don't think the New York Knicks are going to get anywhere near it, to be honest. Now, Obi Toppin is a great selection. They still don't have any guards to give them a spot in this playoff position, in my opinion. They have good forwards. They have Julius Randle. They have Obi Toppin. They have Mitchell Robinson, I believe, still. They have a bunch of big men that could get the job done for them. But where's the guard play? RJ Barrett is the only meaningful guard that they have. They don't have that many solid guards, especially point guards. They brought back Alfred Payton. Is that enough for them to say that they're a playoff team? I just don't think so. They weren't too far away from it this last season. I think they're going to take a few steps back this season because they haven't fixed the main core problem that they have. But of course, we have to wait and see. The New York Knicks come out and surprise a lot of people. The Knicks beat us a few times this season, I believe. So it's never out of the realms of possibility. Now, the Detroit Pistons, who will finish 13th. The Detroit Pistons are the most confusing team, in my opinion. Like, there are so many teams that are unknown. Detroit are just confusing. They got rid of Luke Kennard and Christian Wood, which made you believe they're going to be rebuilding this year. They got rid of two of their better players on that team. But then they bring in Jeremy Grant, who still Detroit needs to make a trade to get him in. Mason Plumlee. I think they got Magruder in there as well. They have a lot of players that a rebuilding team, you just don't think you'd get those type of players. So I don't know what the Detroit Pistons are doing. I think they're trying to retool and trying to get a rebuild quickly for them, but I don't know if that's going to work out. The way that I see it, I see Detroit Pistons being the bottom two this year. And I think it's because during the mid-season, they're going to be trading Blake Griffin, in my opinion. They're going to be trading Derrick Rose. There will be teams out there that will have injuries, that truly believe that they're going to contend, and they're going to pull a trade to make sure that they have the resources to still contend. There's going to be teams out there that are very highly interested in Derrick Rose. There's going to be a team out there that is willing to take on Blake Griffin's contract because he is a solid player still, even if he is declining. He's still a solid player for a team that could be on the verge of contending for a title. So I think the Detroit Pistons are taking a few steps back this year. So I don't see them as main competitors. But again, I think we have to face them 3 times this year. So we wait and see when we verse them, what type of competitors they're going to be. They have done some good things last year. They beat the Pacers a few times last year. They did lose to the Bulls a few times last year as well. They've beaten good teams and they've lost to bad teams as well. They're that type of team. So in terms of being in a playoff spot, I just can't see the Pistons being there at the moment. Second last, the Atlanta Hawks. I think the Atlanta Hawks have taken a massive step forward with their free agency acquisitions. I believe they got Rondo in. I think they got the Bogdanovic in. I think they got, obviously John Collins is going to be back for the full season. No 25-game suspension, unless of course he does a madness once again. They're, in my opinion, a team that should definitely be competing for a playoff spot this year. There is no reason in the world why they can't. They have the team to do it. They have the defense in Chris Dunn now. They have the playmaking in Rondo. They have the star in Trae Young. They have the secondary star in John Collins. They have a solid team built around them with shooting and defense. There's no reason the Atlanta Hawks can't compete with the teams above them, in my opinion. They got very close towards the start of the year, but once that suspension for John Collins came in, the Atlanta Hawks, you felt they just they weren't strong enough to compete anymore. And that's why they finished where they did. Am I overhyping them? Potentially. There is no reason why they can't finish exactly where they are as well. That's the type of team Atlanta are at the end of the day. They're a team that have a lot of young talent that can make the next step. Are they ahead of schedule, in my opinion, right now? I still think that teams like the Hornets, teams like the Wizards, teams like the Knicks, Atlanta are probably better than. So we just have to wait and see. Obviously, Trae Young should be taking another step in his All-Star year. Hopefully he can take the next step. And obviously who finished last, Cleveland Cavaliers. Look, with Cleveland, they added a very good piece in their defensive side with the draft, but I don't think the Cavs are going to be near it at the moment. Andre Drummond's still a good pickup for them. They got rid of Tristan Thompson. I think that's a big blow for a bench center. They still have Kevin Love. They need to make some trades, in my opinion. Get rid of Kevin Love. Probably get rid of Andre Drummond because he's on his player extension. But at the end of the day, I don't see the Cavs being real rivals to the Chicago Bulls or any position within the 8th and 7th seed. So there you have it, guys. That's my opinion. We have the chance to be the 8th seed. We definitely have the chance. The competition that we could probably be facing is the Orlando Magic, the Washington Wizards, the Hornets, and the Knicks. Those are the competitors that I think that will have a chance to give us a run for our money. And obviously teams maybe that will fall down, like the Pacers, and maybe teams like the Raptors, who I don't think will finish top 4 this year. They could end up falling to places where we need to compete with them as well. That's where I see this team going. That's where I see the Chicago Bulls competition coming from. Can we make the playoffs? My answer is yes. But don't put all your money on it. Don't say for certain we are making the playoffs or we're going to miss the playoffs. We're a team that can fight for it, but there are so many teams right now in the East that can fight for it. So let's see which competitors, which teams come out on top. Hopefully the Chicago Bulls will be able to make their claim, get the 7th or the 8th seed. I want to see this team back in the playoffs. I know, and I've accepted that it may not happen this year because of all the free agency moves that every single team has made compared to what we've done. We haven't made big free agency moves because we can't make big free agency moves. We simply cannot do it. But hopefully we have done enough to put us in the conversation. And that's all I want to be in it right now. I want to be in the conversation, and hopefully when we have that play-in tournament, we have enough offensive firepower. We have enough quality offensive players to beat those teams and hopefully get us a spot in the playoffs, and we can build from there. But that's going to be the end of this video. Hopefully you guys liked this video. If you did, drop a like on it. Please subscribe if you're new. Of course, I want to try to get to 400 by the end of the year. That's a very big ask considering where we are right now, but hopefully everybody on board. If you want to give me a chance and stick around for more Bulls videos, more NBA videos, feel free. Thank you guys for watching. Have a wonderful and safe day. I'll see you in another Chicago Bulls video. Take care and peace.